is, in addition to welcoming, is take a roll call. So as I go down the list, please indicate your presence at the meeting. Vice Chair, Lino Lakes Public Safety Director, John Swenson. Is John here? Okay. Sheriff James Stewart. Okay. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm assuming I can. Spring Lake Park Police Chief Doug Ebeltoft. All right, I don't have that. Coon Rapids Police Chief Brad Wise. Okay. Now, all right.
Did you
Here?
Yes, I'm here. Did you hear that?
I didn't. Now I did. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Is either Swenson, Stewart, or Ebeltoft on the call also?
Chief Ebeltoft was having issues connecting. I think he's still working on it, and I'm hoping the chat I put in the site for our communication people will be able to help him get through.
Okay. How about Sheriff Stewart or Public Safety Director Swenson? Okay, not hearing them. All right, we'll continue on. Other members, Circle Pine. I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair, Jim Stewart here. I
Thank you.
apologize. I just joined. I just wrapped up another meeting and jumped on, so I missed what the question was.
Okay, thank you. We're just doing roll call right now, Sheriff.
Sorry, I am here, sir.
Okay, good. Glad you're here. Let's move on. Circle Pine City Administrator Pat Antonin.
I'm here.
Good, thank you. Columbia Heights Police Chief Lenny Austin.
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. County Commissioner Julie Brasted.
Present.
Thank you. Andover Mayor Sherry Bukala. Okay. Lino Lakes Council Member Tony Cavane. Oak Grove Mayor Dan Deno. Okay. St. Francis Mayor Steve Feldman.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ramsey Council Member Chelsea Howell.
Present.
Thank you. Coon Rapids Council Member Brad Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Ramsey Police Chief Jeff Caters.
I'm present.
Columbia Heights Mayor Amada Marquez Simila. Centennial Lakes Police Chief James Mork.
I'm present.
Thank you. Spring Lake Park Mayor Bob Nelson.
Saved messages. New message.
Hey, I'm Dave Maloney with RJM. I'm giving you a call. I think staff might have already gone and figured hoping to get updates on the Excel meter, where we're at with it, or if there's anything we can do to expedite or
We got a little cross-channel talking going on here.
Excel
Is ever that on?
It's coming from Dan Deno.
at this point.
Okay,
Basis.
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
thank you. And is that Jim Mork? He's not on. Bob Nelson, I think you're here, aren't you, Bob?
Yep, Mayor Nelson here.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Fridley Council Member at Large Dave Oswald.
Present.
Thank you. Anoka Police Chief Eric Peterson.
I'm here, sir.
Thank you. Blaine Police Chief Brian Podani.
Here, Mr. Chair.
Blaine Mayor Tim Saunders.
Here.
Thank you. Anoka County Commissioner Scott Schulte.
Present.
St. Francis Police Chief Todd Schweiger.
I'm present.
Thank you. Fridley Director of Public Safety Brian Werke. All right. Anoka Council Member Brian Wesp.
Present.
Thank you. And Fire Representative Charlie Thompson, Columbia Heights Fire Chief.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. We have quorum is 14. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Are there other people on the call that wish to announce their presence so we can record their names in the minutes? Please speak up at this time.
Dee Goodman, Anoka County.
Thank you.
Corey Camp, Anoka County.
Thank you.
Jerry Stoltzman, Anoka County.
Thank you.
Val Sprincenatic, Anoka County.
Thank you.
XPSDS.
Thank you, Britta.
George Jensen, PSDS.
Thank you, George.
Jason Nyhart, PSDS.
Thank you. All right. Very good. I think we can proceed. Mayor Buchla, I see you're on. I didn't hear you respond, but he must have jumped on afterwards. Thank you. All right, let's move item. Item number 2 is, I'm sorry, approval of the minutes.
John Swin with Lionel Lakes. I'm present as well.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting? Hearing no additions or corrections, I'll exercise prerogative of the chair and approve the minutes to stand as typed. Thank you. Item number 3 is revised rules of procedure, attachment B. And those were presented at the last meeting, and I did get some comments from Council Member Brad Johnson as to Article 8. Just to clarify, Article 8, Section 1A, Governance Committee. This committee shall be appointed by the, and we'll insert the letters JLEC Chair, and then make Chair a small letter C. We'll do that in 8B. We'll say this committee shall be appointed by the JLEC Chair, and C, committee shall be appointed by the JLEC small letter Chair with concurrence of the council. That is to clear up that the committees would not be appointed by the chair of that committee, but by chair of the council, consistent with 4A. So those are the recommended changes. Does anyone else have any other changes to the rules of procedure? Okay, hearing none at this point then, we'll open poll number 1 with those changes as recommended. I would ask the body to then vote yes or no to those rules of procedure. Okay, the polling is done. There are 15 yeses, 0 nos. The rules of procedure are now adopted. Thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, which is the treasurer's report, which is attachment C. Sheriff, you're the treasurer, but do you wish to give the report, or do you want to defer to Corey Camp from the Division Manager of Finance and Accounting for the county?
Mr. Chair, yes. In keeping with our past tradition, I'll give the high-level overview, and then I'll turn it over to the magic behind the screen in order to give any details or answer any questions. But as of March 31st, 2021, our overall revenue is at $1,245,915, and our expenditures broken down, our administrative support is at $26,570. Our system maintenance and support is at $583, I believe, $1,787. And our operational expenses are at $714,600, giving us a balance of $531,315. And our estimated fund balance is currently at $1,285,474. So that is our overview, again, of budget versus actual. You'll have it in your handouts if you want to dive deeper into 2021 budget versus actual and percentages, et cetera. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Corey if he has any expansion. Thank you.
Corey?
All right. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, you did a good job there. Basically, the first quarter highlights are we are on track, very similar to what we've done in previous years for first quarter. Our revenue collections are exactly where we expected them to be. All revenue will be fully collected by second quarter. That is traditionally what happens. As far as administrative support, we are a little behind on that, and that has to do with just timing of billing, and that is just typical. We always pay our TriTech support contract up front. So that is always in the first part of the year. So that's why you see those expenses jump up very quickly under system maintenance and support. Everything else is on track as expected at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Sheriff or Corey Camp by anyone?
Mr. Chair, Mayor
Yes.
Feldman.
Yes,
Just want
Mayor.
to point out that the total system of maintenance support is 683,787.
Correct. It is 683,
It's
787. That is correct.
683, not 583.
That is correct.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? Hearing none.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, Chief Eviltofty is present for the meeting. Sorry for my late.
No problem, Chief. Nothing runs like a deer, I see that. Okay. All right, any other comments? At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Say Francis makes that motion.
Mayor Feldman. And sorry, who was the second?
Schulte.
Commissioner Schulte. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? We will open the poll at this point. Please vote yes or no. Okay, the time for voting has closed. There are 20 yeses, 0 noes. The motion does pass. Thank you. Let's move to item number 5, which is the 2022 proposed budget packet. It is attachment D in your materials. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Corey Camp. Again, we are not approving the budget today. We have first presented this at the last meeting. We are just going over this again today. We will then pass the final budget in July at our July meeting. But in accordance with our past practice, we like to give elected officials and members of this body at least a heads up as to what we are proposing for budgets going forward in 2022. So at this point, I would then turn it over to Corey Camp. Corey, if you would, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. What we're looking at, does everybody have D, or is it something we should be sharing up on the screen, Mr. Chair?
D should have been presented with all the materials that went out to all the members.
Okay, so if everybody has it, I'll just proceed forward. The 2022 joint budget is being presented for the Joint Law Enforcement Council with the following assumptions. These assumptions are similar to what we've done in the past years. The super formula split between law, the county, and the fire remains the same percentage as it was in 19, and this has been this way, I think, for at least 6-7 years. 31.31% is law, 60.58% goes to the county, or CAD we call it, and 8.11% is fire. Now keep in mind, this is the breakdown for shared costs. Some of the costs that the JLEC has are borne fully 100% by either fire or law, depending on their nature. So, and that's all kind of built within the budget. Again, we have the 3 major areas, the, basically administrative support, system maintenance support, and just kind of the equipment or initiatives. And under that initiatives, we have a $50,000 contingency that is provided to help with new and ongoing things that materialize during each year. And that is something that we have put in place a number of years ago to help George as he works through changes in the system and keeps things running very smoothly. So the law percentage breakdown is also continued to be based on the percent of calls for service for the last 5 years. That's the within all the cities. It is broken down further by each city based on that call, based on the percent of calls for service. And so that was updated. So all that information is in place, and that is the proposed budget has that. Our goal, based on our discussions over the last couple of years, has been maintain a reserve balance of about 20%. We are estimating it to be about 19.1% by 2025 based on what is presented today. So as we look at the operations, at the end of 2020, we came in under budget by over $178,000. We had expected, which is increasing our reserves by about 28,000. We had expected to use 150,000 in reserves, so we didn't even use reserves. So that just helps us moving forward as we work to continue to maintain the budget as best we can. We did increase the 21 budget by 56,600, kind of a carry forward to pay for a fiber optic line between the radio tower and Anoka County Sheriff's Office. This was voted on in January. Just wanted to remind you of that. The overall 2022 proposed budget assumes a $5,000 increase over the 21 original adopted budget of 1.628 million. And mainly our changes are, we had a decrease in our software maintenance by about 63,500 in our budgeting, but that was offset by increases in administrative support and some software licensing and other contracts outside our main maintenance contract. So overall, a small decrease. So that's what we're looking at. As you look at our overall expenditures, again, very small change, not much change except for what we just talked about on the maintenance and support. We maintain the $50,000 for flexibility. And in the revenues, I'm going to focus on the revenues a little bit. We are proposing a 0.3% increase in overall dues. This would result in the law group receiving 1.59%. The fire group would go up 2.6% and a 1.6% decrease in the county. And that just has to do with the shift of costs that are covered by all three under the super formula and costs that are covered fully by the law and fire operations, and just the changes that have occurred within each of those. And so that can shift the dues a little bit. As we look to 23 to 25, we are expecting dues to average about 4.5% a year. This is down from our initial 7.5% projection a year ago. So we have improved our overall projection and believe we'll have to raise less revenue. That we are coming in very well on expenses. We are controlling those bottom line expenditures and getting a better understanding of what our needs are for our system as we've matured with the system over the last couple of years. Overall on dues, we are still sitting at 1.523 million in total, which is less than the 1.58 million we collected in 2017. So we've kept this very functional from a budgetary standpoint over the last 5 years. What this does is reduce our JLEC reserves. Currently, we have a 53.1% reserve in 2020, and a reserve is representative of, how much excess dollars we have in comparative to our expenditures. So that's the percentage. It's percentage of total expenditures. So as we look at 21, we expect to use some and reduce down to 36.1%. If we come in better, that will shift that. For 2022, we're expecting to reduce our reserves further up to a 30.1%, and so on. So just wanted to kind of put that forth going forward. So the last sections of our budget are equipment and projects. And this is the capital side. We have a public safety levy, which currently is 1.75 million annually. This sunsets in 2023, and this can only be used for specific capital projects that the JLEC has identified going forward. The public safety levy has 3 projects. It's the public safety data system, which was completed a number of years ago. It was authorized for $8 million. We are still reimbursing Anoka County for that. Anoka County upfronted most of the money, and they are planned to have all the money paid back by 2023. So, and also we have an upgrades to the 911 radio tower systems. That has been planned for the last few years. We still are estimating about 2.7 million to be spent. We are working with 911 right now to come up with what is that really going to look like, and does that number change? And so this has been an ongoing project for the last number of years, and there's a couple more segments to go over the next 2 years, and we expect that to be completed in the next couple of years. And then finally, we did some equipment replacement of our public safety data system, the servers, switches, and all that type of equipment. We just replaced it about a year ago. We are planning for another 900,000 to refresh that equipment, probably in 2022 or 23. But if it even goes beyond 23, the dollars will be available to use it for that. It's just because even if the levy sunsets, the dollars that we've collected are available to use for those capital until they're exhausted. So overall, if you look at page, what is it, page 30 of the packet, that gives you the detailed budget that we're referring to. So feel free to take a look at that. And page 34 is the public safety levy cash flow. This shows you our capital projects and just how the money is flowing. And it just shows each year, and the balance carries forward. And then as the year's activities are subtracted after each year. So with that, are there any questions or any changes that people would like to recommend for this? Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Corey. Just to look at it slightly differently, our operating expenditures are $1,623,025. Our dues are $1,523,025, and we're using $100,000 from our reserves to make it up to have a balanced budget.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions for Corey? Anyone? Any questions? This will not be an action item. It will be on the July agenda. Okay. Hearing none, and Corey's always available if people have some questions afterwards. I'm sure you can respond by email if there's any questions about the proposed budget for 2022. Thank you, Corey. Certainly appreciate it. Let's move on to item number 6, which is the committee reports. Item A is the Governance Committee, Public Safety Data System. Chief Brad Wise, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Governance Committee met on April 14th. And frankly, the majority of the conversation was regarding the budget, both an overview of expenses from last year and then where we stand this year. And then, of course, thinking about where we're going to be next year. In addition, PSDS manager George Jensen then gave an accounting of the activities of him and his team as they're working to maintain the system that we have while keeping an eye on improvements for the future moving forward. And I know he has some issues related to that he was planning to discuss with the group. So with that, I think we could probably just move on to George giving his report as the PSDS manager.
Thank you, Chief. Let's move to 6B, the manager's report, attachment E in your materials. George, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really, if you look through attachment E, that's our latest report. To summarize it, basically the team and I are working on keeping the system on the leading edge, or at least up to date, with the latest, greatest upgrades possible as far as software goes, and we're working to keep our environment compliant with BCA and FBI regulations. And that's really our job moving forward. We'll never stray away from that as long as the system's around. Really, our biggest challenge is the vendor we're working with. Pretty much all of our software or applications come through the Central Square line of products, and it always seems there's one time of the year where we run into resource constraints. We can't get a focus of their team on what we want to accomplish. But with the focus that Britta and Jason and Andy Todd and Kevin McNallen all put on to their different areas of the system, we tend to overcome that. If you look at our FBR system, our law RMS side, it's probably the most up to date in the country. You look at FDM, it just got the latest update that we could get to it done last week or the week before. Jason handled that for us. That is a great example of how we struggle getting resources to Central Square. That upgrade took over a year to get accomplished. And it's just a lot of back and forth with the vendor trying to get focus from them. And I know Kevin McNallen with the CAD and Andy Todd with the mobile, we're working with Central Square to try to get an upgrade that'll work for both sides of law enforcement. So that's really our struggle when we look at our system. But other than that, the system's up and running. It's doing real well for us. So that's my report. Anybody ever has any questions on that PSDS update? My contact information is at the top of the introduction sheet. So feel free to reach out to me, phone calls, emails. I'll answer them all.
Thank you. Any questions for George on this meeting? Hearing none, thank you, George. Let's move on to item 6C, contracts. Romanet 1 is the ratification of a renewed LOGIS agreement. Should be attachment F in your pact. As you recall from the last meeting, we had a 5-year agreement with LOGIS to handle some of the mechanics of our public safety data system. That expired December 31, 2020. We had to renew it. This body gave the authority to me and the executive committee to sign a contract and then to ratify it at this meeting. That is the purpose of attachment F before you today, which is to ratify the renewed LOGIS agreement. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve and ratify the LOGIS Support Services Agreement. Anyone with a motion?
Brad Wise will move the motion.
Chief Wise makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Dave Oswald of Fridley.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's go right to the polling. Please indicate yes or no. Okay, the poll is now closed. I see 20 yes, 0 no. The motion does pass. Thank you. Let's go to Romanet number 2, the MOU with Anoka County to provide property ownership updates. George, I'm going to ask you to expound on this a little bit for the group, please.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend we just drop this as a line item. Talking with John Slavorchek, this is something that they have been trying to get done. It's just the software they're working with is the data pull is really complicated to get out, and the vendor is not able to meet our needs. So it's really nothing that we can accomplish through a memorandum.
Okay, we're still working on that, George, though.
Yeah, they've been working on it. The way I understand it is they have been working on it. It's just something that the vendor cannot get done. So it's really a vendor issue. It's not a lack of trying from Anoka County Tax Office. It's just the vendor is not able to meet the need, our needs.
I appreciate it, George. If you could expound a little bit on what we were looking for, just so the body is aware. And I know we're not
so
going
when we, John Slavorchek is our Anoka County GIS, Director of Anoka County GIS. He provides the public safety data system map layers. So when the squad cars and the fire apparatuses are responding, they have maps to look at. As we were going through a new project, it's called Real-Time 100 Maps. It's a new functionality to our mobiles, and it provides a better mapping resource. We were going through the layers there, and tax information was included in it. But as we dug into it, we understood that the tax information is now about 1.5 years outdated. And we're trying to get that updated, but there's just no way to do it currently through this software program. They cannot provide the output that we need to do the input into our system. The importance of that is when an officer responds or a firefighter responds, to an emergency, and sometimes they need to know who the owner of that property is. The tax information layer would provide that. But because the information's outdated, it's unreliable, and it's almost to the point where we should remove it so officers and firefighters aren't working with bad data.
Okay. Thank you, George. I guess as this goes along, I'm sure if there's an item for us to consider later on, you'll bring it forward, correct?
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you very much, George. Let's go to item 6D, the Data Standards Committee, Chief Caters. Anything to report, Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This group did not meet this quarter, and I do not have a report.
All right, thank you, Chief. The Emergency Communications Committee, Sheriff Stewart.
Yes, sir. Due to the planning and a lot of the unrest going on, and then honestly, a lack of agenda items, we also canceled our meeting, and we will hopefully have a report next time around.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Let's move to item 6F, the CAD update. Val Sprinsanatic, attachment G, if you would, Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of our items are outlined in our attachment. As the sheriff said, with civil unrest, we were very prepared for the worst case, which luckily for all of us did not happen. We did get to try out our new hip link integrated into our iPOS, which is the integrated public alert warning system, to send out some of the curfew information. So that was a really good time for our supervisors to test and make sure it worked and that they knew what they were doing, since it was important information to get out, but not life-threatening. So that was good for us.
Val, could you expound on that just a little bit for our elected officials so they know exactly what HipLink and the iPause is?
So sure. So HipLink is something that we purchased, which allows us to send out a message to either countywide, as we did for the curfew,
cell phones,
or to us.
To cell phones or?
Through, yes, through the wireless. So it comes to the wireless phones. So we could put it out for a small area if we had like a hazardous spill. We wanted to put out a 6-block radius. We could send it out only to that area, and then anybody's cell phones in that area would get the alert. It also gives us the capability, if we needed, to send out the emergency alert, the EAS message, which comes across your TV screens. That's something that we would probably not do. That's more like weather service type of thing, but we would use this in the event of an active shooter or any public safety information that we wanted to get out quickly to a certain group. Is there questions on that, or?
Yep.
Kind of.
It's much like an Amber Alert, only it's for other things too, correct? I mean, that's how
Correct.
it comes across on your phone.
Yep, and you would get it. I'm sure everybody got it during the curfew time. That just said Anoka County was under a curfew. We sent it out an hour before the curfew to get everybody the proper notice that they needed. So it worked out really well. It goes to a pretty, if we put a 6-block area, it might go out to a little bit bigger area. And as people travel in and out of the area, they would get it on their phones. But it was a really great tool for us to have.
So it works by you send it signals to the cell towers in that geographic area, right? Or what they call the polygon,
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep, so the alert bounces off the tower. And so depending on, there's a lot of different factors that go into where the tower is located. It may go out to a bigger area, but it's still pretty, we can condense it down to an area. But it just comes on your cell phones. So I think it was a great tool. I mean, like I said, during the curfew, it was great. We had a lot of people calling that didn't understand it. They got the alert. Their first thought was to call 911. So we know it went out. It went really well. Yeah, it just bounces off the cell phone. So if you have an older phone or a phone that doesn't connect to like Wi-Fi, or then you probably wouldn't have got the alert if you have like an older flip phone. But otherwise, the majority of the newer phones all get the alerts, which is a built-in. It's not an extra cost. It's a built-in feature that is required on all new cell phones.
Okay. Thank you, Val. Go ahead.
Okay, just a couple other little things quick. We added Now Then Fire Department they started their own official fire department. We added that information to our councils and dispatch. And George touched a little bit on the upgrades. We we're hoping to upgrade. We've had numerous attempts to upgrade CAD, but they've all had major problems, I guess, and things that used to work that did not work in the new version. So we have not upgraded. We're hoping to upgrade to 2.1.1.1 patch 2, hopefully in late May. When we do an upgrade to CAD, we put it into our test environment first, and we have our supervisors run through numerous scenarios to make sure that everything is working like it's supposed to before we put it into production. So we're hoping for that in late May. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Val?
Any questions?
Okay. Hearing none, let's move on to item 7, Fire Protection Council. Chief Thompson.
Mr. Chair, members of the Joint Law Council, the Anoka County Fire Protection Council met April 22nd, Thursday evening. We met via Zoom. One of the items discussed there were several amendments to the 2021 budget, which were presented to the group, and all of them passed. I guess the highlight of the evening was the 2022 budget presentation, but it was presented to the entire group, elected officials and chiefs, and after the questions were answered, we did pass the 2022 budget. So as you recall, we used to do that in January, and now we've changed our bylaws to allow us to pass it in April, which is much more timely for people. It was fairly uneventful, a quick meeting. Jason did give a presentation on FDM, which was very informative. And dispatch did talk about the IPOS system. Several questions were answered about that too as well. Other than that, I'll open it up if you have questions or comments that I can answer.
Any questions for Chief Thompson? Any questions? Thank you, Chief. Let's go on to item number 8, which is user groups. The Chief Law Enforcement, Chief Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I have to mention is that over the last year, all the police departments and the sheriff's office and Anoka County Communications have been preparing for the Derek Chauvin trial, which is now finally over. And I just wanted to just say my hat's off to all the other departments in Anoka County, because thanks to all of their preparation and the joint training that took place throughout this past year among all of our agencies, it really put us in a good spot to respond to any issues that may have come come up. And also it put us in a really good position to respond and assist to Brooklyn Center, which none of us saw coming. And more importantly, though, really put us in a good spot to respond to any fallout that could have spilled over in Anoka County, which thankfully we did not see a whole lot of activity. So we were very fortunate there, but all of that training and prep definitely put us in a very good position to be ready for any issues that would have came up. And I think this just goes to show that Anoka County law enforcement is unique in that we are a true partnership here, and that really does make all of the difference in the world, especially in major incidents like we just finally finished up. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Austin? Let's move on to criminal investigations. I don't know, is Chief Deputy Helwig on, or Sheriff? Do you want to cover this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Deputy Helwig here. I got the CID report on May 10th. We're going to be getting our detective vacancy filled. We are hiring Nick Lopper-Fido, who is coming to us from the Washington County Sheriff's Office. He's got 14 years of experience with Washington County as a deputy and investigator for them, and his longtime goal was to do investigations permanently, which he didn't have an opportunity to over in Washington County. So he's going to be joining us here in a couple of weeks. We've had a case aid position that's been vacant here for a little bit as we looked at restructuring it, and that's been submitted to our employee relations to be restructured as a criminal analyst. And then CID detectives have also started testifying this week in the Blaine Target
homicide
murder trial there that from January of 2020. And so they've got that going on. And that's all I've got for CID.
Okay, you want to move on, right, to education, training, and firearms, Chief?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair, again. And we've got a few courses coming up here that we're hosting here on May 4th. We have a report writing class, May 19th, first aid essentials. Also on May 19th is our first open range day. And we've got those scheduled out through July for sure. Sure, we've got them scheduled beyond that. I've got the dates through July if anybody needs them. Otherwise, you can contact our training unit. And then we have a week-long death and homicide investigations course that'll be coming here July 12th through the 16th, and that'll complete my report.
Any questions for Chief Deputy Hellwig on either criminal investigations, education, training, or firearms? Okay, hearing none, let's move on. Item D, emergency management. Terry Stoltzman, if you would, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, just a couple of bullet points here. Just highlighting the ongoing response recovery from COVID-19 with their partners, which is all of you. As our communities continue to adapt and pivot to public information, the vaccine distribution that keeps changing, testing and associated activities. It's really driven us for the last year and so many months, and we'll be around a little bit longer. We look forward to the governor's changes that he should be announcing sometime this week, rolling back some of those executive orders. With that, our weekly WebEx, our Emergency Operations Center availability call that we've been having every Monday for many months, it's going to transition to every other week starting May 3rd. We'll do May 3rd and then move to every other week ongoing forward. We'll still have updates. If there's something that we need to do quicker, we'll certainly do that. But with the pace and the trial and other activities, we felt it was a good time to reduce that down by a week. Give us a little bit more time on other things. But if you have questions, you can email at eoc@co.anoka.mn.us. We sent invites out, updated the invites yesterday. So if you didn't get one, just contact me and we can make that happen for you. I just want to touch on the ongoing support to our communities during the recent civil unrest. We're going to be doing some planning, looking at lessons learned, work with law enforcement agencies, fire, and others about potential future incidents and how to handle them in our county and assist others. And then finally, cold is transitioning to warm. It's going to be 80 some degrees on Monday. So just a reminder that future watches and warnings will arise in our communities around severe weather. COVID still happens. Hopefully civil unrest won't, but other things do go bump in the night. That's one of them. So you'll probably be seeing some messaging around the outdoor warning siren. We didn't really get a chance to work on very much because we were busy with COVID and other things. But look for that planning to resume. So look for informational updates coming out sometime soon.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Any questions for Terry by members of the body? Okay. Hearing none, thank you, Terry. Let's move on to LFF Task Force. Chief Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to give an update. And as we've discussed previously, just for information, the Auto Theft Task Force is a joint effort between among every law enforcement agency in Anoka County, and that the task force is funded by the Minnesota Department of Commerce through fees they collect through auto insurance. And as I always say, it's a way to get auto theft investigations off of police department budgets and onto this grant-funded operation. That said, Coon Rapids is going to be transitioning the management of the grants to the city of Fridley. We believe that process will be completed come July. It'll be seamless. Fridley has done it before. And again, the Joint Law Enforcement Council or every agency in Anoka County would be interested in continuing that partnership with the Minnesota Department of Commerce. And I can tell you why. Auto thefts are continuing to happen. In fact, they're increasing at an increasing rate. Just for comparison, in the first quarter of 2019, there were 137 reported auto thefts in Anoka County. In the first quarter of 2021, there were 163 reported automobile thefts in Anoka County. And those investigations can be complicated because there's all sorts of factors that play into it. A significant number of those thefts are likely for transportation purposes only, meaning somebody takes an opportunity to steal a car with keys and ignition. In fact, we still run about 50% of the cars stolen in Anoka County are those with keys. That said, some things are different too, in that some of the stolen cars now are being stolen for their catalytic converters to be removed at another location. They're also used for other criminal purposes. And I think I can speak for every law enforcement agency in Anoka County and say that the numbers of stolen vehicles fleeing from law enforcement is growing at an alarming rate. What I mean by that is an officer will attempt to make a traffic stop on a stolen vehicle, and rather than stopping the car, will simply flee. Often they're displaying stolen license plates as well. So sometimes the information is complicated and convoluted for the officers. Also, these cars too, I was updated and said that some of the stolen cars will get their paint color changed in a haphazard way, but that's a new thing. And it means that people are wanting to keep the stolen car longer. So they'll steal a car. I guess black is the go-to color to change the color, and it's shoddy work. It's just done quickly. And then they keep stealing license plates and changing plates on the car so that they can keep the stolen car for longer than merely a joyride. But that said, is that the Auto Theft Task Force will continue to work on these investigations, and they do make arrests that are related to this. And the goal is always, of course, to have an impact on the number of thefts in Anoka County. But that's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Chief Wise on that? I'm sure this body is aware there's a bill being proposed right now to eliminate some of the traffic stops based on some low-level offenses like expired tabs. Chief, any comment on how you feel this is going to affect the ability to detect stolen cars?
Well, I'll just say I wish that this stuff wouldn't happen so quickly. So in other words, there was an incident 2 weeks ago related to expired registration, and then suddenly there's law changes being proposed, and there may be consequences for that. It would be great if some of this conversation could take place, or that some of these policy decisions could slow down a little bit. But that said, it's the legislature reacts to public sentiment, and it's not like I blame them for it. It's just if there was an opportunity to discuss traffic safety and the impact of some of those traffic stops, or the elimination of some of those traffic stops on traffic safety, it certainly is a conversation that's worth having. I don't know that we're going to get a chance to have that conversation before there's a policy change.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Any members of the body, anything further on Auto Theft Task Force? None. Sheriff, I'm just going to ask you, I know we usually have the Peace Officer Memorial Day, usually in the middle of May, but I understand it's not going to occur this year. Sheriff, could you kind of explain a little bit more? Because you've traditionally been the host of that here at Anoka County.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Thank you. We are doing it a little different this year. We all recognize the ongoing COVID challenges and the social distancing things. So what we are currently in the process of doing is our Tierney Peters, our community outreach coordinator, is working with the local agencies, and she is doing video segments so that each of our Anoka County fallen heroes continue to be honored and not forgotten. She is going to put together a compilation video that will still be aired on the 15th, so that we can have that link and share it more broadly with families and those that are interested parties. We will not be having a live event, but the video will be able to be shared and hopefully be as impactful in remembering our fallen.
Will that be on the sheriff's website, Sheriff?
Yes, there will be probably releasing it, I would guess, at high noon on the 15th, which is National Law Enforcement Memorial Day. It'll be available on our site, and we can also have it pushed out, have the link pushed out to everyone.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Just thought I'd bring that up. Let's move to item 9, elected officials input. At this point now, I usually go down and ask our elected officials of this body if they have anything they want to share with this group. We'll start going down alphabetical order. Pat Antonin from Circle Pines.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Brasted.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that yesterday at our county board meeting, we passed a resolution proclaiming May 9th through the 15th as Peace Officers Week in Anoka County. And I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to all the men and women in Anoka County law enforcement. Our appreciation cannot be understated for the work you do each and every day to promote and ensure public safety in our communities. So a big thank you from the Anoka County Board.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Buchla?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. I don't know if Lino Lakes Councilmember Tony Kaveen came on or not. Probably not. All right, Mayor Deno?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city of Oak Grove passed an ordinance restricting targeted picketing just last night. This is also reflecting back on what happened a couple of weeks ago. And then in the trying to get back to normal, we decided to have our recycle days again this spring. It was so well attended that at one point in time, we had to call our police officer, the sheriff's department, and they had up to 3 squads directing traffic because of all the people coming to our recycle days. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Feldman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to just tell the council that on April 15th, some of my staff, along with Representative Kurt Dowd and Commissioner Matt Look, we met with Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner of MnDOT to further discuss changes on Highway 47, which is ongoing. We're looking at putting a whole new task force together on discussing that. Hopefully new changes will be coming that way. I also want to commend all the departments for being prepared for unrest that didn't happen, which I'm glad it didn't happen. I commend all the departments for being prepared for that. And I want to say that we're in a contract right now with Now and Then for fire services that where Ramsey discontinued that part of it. So we picked that part up with them. That went active as of Monday on the 26th. Looking forward to that working out to value both cities. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to report that last night the city of Ramsey passed an ordinance preventing targeted picketing as well. And also I would just like to thank law enforcement for everything that you are doing to keep our community safe. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to also thank the county for all of its communication with respect to the COVID vaccination efforts that have been going on in Anoka County. I appreciate all the work that the county has been doing on that. Councilmember Schulte, Commissioner Schulte, Commissioner Brasted, appreciate all of that open communication. I am looking forward as we get those vaccinations to returning to in-person meetings, and I don't know if the chair has some comments about the next meeting and whether that might be a possibility, but I can't wait till we get back to that point. And I would also like to acknowledge one of my alternates, Councilmember Rehrauer, who joined the meeting here and is on the call. She's one of the alternates together with Pat Carlson from Coon Rapids. So if I can't make a meeting, you may see her or Pat Carlson. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Rauer, have you on the call if you want? You want to add anything?
I do not want to add anything, but thank you. Hello.
Okay, very good. I don't know if Mayor Marquez Simula has joined. I don't think she's there. Mayor Nelson, if you would.
Thank you, Chair. I see a lot of people went with the no point protesting. We did this 2-3 months ago at Spring Lake Park. Thank God we haven't had to use it. My hat's off to all the law enforcement in Anoka County. We had an incident in Spring Lake Park a year ago that was right next to my house. And I know I talked to the sheriff after that and thanked him and the crew. But the way we all work together in this county to keep us all safe is unbelievable. So my hat's off to all these people. Keep up the good work. And we'll keep Anoka County the best place to live.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. Fridley Councilmember Dave Oswald, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one thing. We have Lieutenant Jeff Guest will be retiring as of Friday. He served the Fridley Police Department for 20 years, and we'd like to thank him for his commendable service. And if anybody knows Jeff, just if you get a chance, reach out and wish him the best in his retirement. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Let's move on to Mayor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing for the good of the order.
All right, appreciate it. Commissioner Schulte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to reiterate what Commissioner Brassad said, in that Anoka County elected officials have committed to standing behind law enforcement at all levels and making sure that Anoka County stays safe above and all else. It's the most important thing in any neighborhood, is to feel comfortable and safe. And it's you, the law enforcement of Anoka County, that make that happen. And we're committed to that, committed to you. You need anything, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Wesp.
Mr. Chair, Anoka Champlain Fire Department has hired a new fire chief, Ted Mascotti, and he came on board in March, doing well. As you know, Champlain has had some protesting, and our chief, Chief Eric Peterson from Anoka, has stood up with them and been prepared with our police force, and then essentially used Anoka County to back up if the city of Anoka needs it. So we had Sheriff James Stewart was at our Anti-Crime Commission meeting last week and gave an update, and looks like we're prepared and to do the best that we can. And that's my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Let's move on to item 10. Anybody have any old business they wish to bring forth? Okay. Is there any new business that anyone wishes to bring forth? Hearing none. The next meeting, I know Councilman Johnson referred to this. The next meeting is set for July 28th, 2021. It's either going to be virtually or at the Fridley Public Safety Department, depending, of course, on what the governor's orders are, depends on when public buildings are opened. I would suspect that we may do a combination of live and perhaps Zoom or WebEx, whatever the platform will be. But you will all be notified of that going forward. Anything else for the good of the order that anyone wants to bring forward at this time? Okay, hearing none, I will declare us adjourned. Thank you very much for attending. Stay safe out there. Take care.